Hi, everyone, and welcome to Your Life Projectized with Parmjit. Today, I have another special guest on the line. We have Saby Waraich, also known as Saby. And so he's joining me today for episode number 22. And of course, we are on a new schedule. So these episodes, rather than running on Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, they are now going to be airing once a month on the first of every month. So Sabiji is the first, I guess, participant on my new monthly schedule. So Sabiji, firstly, thank you very much for joining us, and also Sat Shri Akal, because so Sabiji and I are part of the same community. We're both Punjabi, Sikh, and so Sat
Yeah.
Shri Akal is our common greeting. So
Yes.
Sabiji, obviously, I have so many great things to say about you, as you know. So why don't you introduce yourself and then I'll share with the audience what today's episode is about.
Absolutely. So thank you, Parmjit and Sat Shri Akal ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ. That is the way to say welcome and congratulations to you for the 22nd episode. Man,
Thank you.
wow. This I thought I may be the third or fourth one, but you have been rocking it, so which is so amazing. So congratulations
Thank
to
you.
you for doing this. Well, again, my full name is Sarabjit Singh Waraich. I go by Sabi. People say it's Saby, Sabi. I was like, let's make it spicier, wasabi, right there. Makes it easy to remember, right? It's Sabi. So I was born in India. I came to United States in the year 2003. My background is in computer science. I did my bachelor's, worked for Indian multinational firm, worked for GE back in India, and then came here in 2003, did my master's in engineering and technology management, was doing consulting, and then in 2000 and around 2004 2005, my wife said, okay, no more consulting. We had our son, so she was like, I need your help here. So
Of course.
of course, right? So I left consulting and I joined a city of Portland. I started my journey as a software developer there. Did that for about 3.5 years, became a project manager, became a business relationship manager, headed the application development team, became a PMO manager, and then led one of the complex transformations at the city. And then I wasn't having much fun. The COVID hit, and then I joined Clackamas Community College in June 2020, right in midst of pandemic. So currently I wear a dual hat. So I'm the chief
Mhm.
information officer and a chief information security officer at Clackamas Community College.
Wow, wow. So, Sabiji, of course, you have such varied experience. And again, I am so honored that you decided to be on this podcast because, again, I think our audience is going to benefit greatly from some of the experiences that I know you're going to share in today's episode. And so, for folks who are listening, so again, as Sabiji mentioned, and by the way, if you guys are wondering why I keep calling him Sabiji, it is because in the Sikh community, or actually in the Indian community in general, G is a form of respect. And so Sabbi G is older than me. And so out of respect, I always attach G to the end of his name. So
Yeah, there you go. There you go, Paramjit. She's just making me feel old saying, Sabi, you're old, buddy. You're old.
not at
That's
all.
all.
Not at all. I would say
Yeah.
not older, wiser, maybe.
I will take
So
that. Thank you so much.
of course, of course. And so, guys, so today's episode number 22, and today's episode is called Building Standout Leadership from Trust to Transformation. And this is a perfect episode, and Sabiji is a perfect individual to be on this episode because Sabiji, not only have you led PMOs, not only have you been a project manager, you have done so much in the realm of leadership. And I know you've trained various teams and so I definitely want to kind of get into it and ask you questions because I feel that I'm going to learn a lot from this conversation, as will those folks who are listening.
Absolutely. No, I'm super excited to talk about my experiences and the journey which I had and the path which I'm taking. It's always exciting to give back to the community and share what I've learned so that we can all, right, as a human being, this is I think, is my primary job is to elevate everyone else and in this journey, just bring it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you already do such an incredible job of that, Zabiji. And again, I hope that I can continue to learn from you. So, Zabiji, one of the questions that I definitely wanted to make sure I asked you, right? So, how do you define standout leadership and really what makes it unique in your opinion?
Yeah. So, when people think about standout leadership, they think, okay, you're the loudest voice or the noisiest person who wants to stand out. No, that's not standout leadership. When I talk about standout leadership, I usually say become a purple cow.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you become standout leadership. So, purple is an acronym which stands for uh, P stands for positive mindset, right? So, if we get about 80,000 thoughts throughout the day, and most of those are negative, 75 to 80% of those thoughts are negative. So, how you can stand out is by reframing those thoughts, by having that positive mindset with this attitude of I can, I will, end of story, right? I can do it. So that's how you do it. Then U stands for unchaining yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Unchaining is we have been conditioned, Parmjit, by our society, by our culture, by our education, everything to behave a certain way, right? Or to act a certain way. And then we try to get comfortable in that comfort zone. And it's really scary to get out of that comfort zone because out of that zone is the fear zone, and it's really challenging to embrace that failure or have the courage to push through that failure. So we need to unchain ourselves from that mindset, that conditioning. That will help you to stand out. Then R stands for relationships. And how do you build relationships? And when i
Mm-hmm.
when i talk about relationships, I say, do you get relationships? Gratitude, empathy, and trust, those are the three pillars which will
Absolutely.
help you to build relationships. Then P stands for persistent.
Okay.
We're going to have challenges, right?
Yeah.
Every single day we have challenges coming along. How you can still push through those challenges and still deliver, that will help you to stand out. L stands for leadership. And that leadership, when I talk about it, is called Sherpa leadership. It's not about me,
Uh-huh.
it's about you. What can I do to make you successful? So, if you, as a leader, if you shift that mindset from focusing just on yourself to focusing on your team, on your sponsors, on your stakeholders, on your customers, that will help you to stand out and become that purple cow leader. And then E at the end stands for energy. And what kind of energy are you leading with, right? So we
Yeah.
have positive energy and we have negative energy. But if you're positive, people get attracted to you because you are passionate about it. You lead with that passionate energy and you're not focusing on problems. Yes, we're going to have problems. We have
Yeah.
those challenges. But you're shifting that mindset and say, okay, what are the solutions out there? How can I lead by overcoming those problems and providing those solutions? So that's a purple cow leader that will help you to stand out.
I love it. So firstly, thank you for sharing that. I did not know that acronym. I didn't even, I'd never heard of that acronym. So thank you for defining it. And you mentioned so many great points. And obviously, I'm not going to touch on each of those letters, but I think it's important that you mentioned, right? Something that I've also heard throughout, my career is a true leader focuses on their people, right? And how can I help my people, and how can I help them develop into leaders themselves, right? And then something else you mentioned was empathy, and I absolutely love that. I
Right.
am a big proponent that it is important to lead with empathy every single day in every interaction, and so I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And
So,
then yeah,
so
please.
one thing, Brahmjeet, because since you are talking about empathy, I want to add a little bit more, provide a little
Yeah,
bit more depth
sure.
into providing empathy, right? When we look at empathy, you most of the times we think, okay, putting yourself in somebody's
Yeah,
shoes and how they are feeling. But when I talk about empathy, I say, there are three kinds of empathy. The first kind of empathy is when you see a team member or you see an individual and you can feel like something is off today,
yeah,
right? Most of the times we have our blinders on. We are so busy in our day-to-day work, we don't even pay attention to our team members, like what's going on there, right? So
yeah,
that's the first kind of empathy where you can actually see something is off. Next is when you go and have a conversation and they share their story and you can say, oh my god, I can only imagine what they must be going through. But the most important kind of empathy, which is the third kind, is cognitive empathy, is where you take an action. An action is, what can I do? How can I help? That's where you build that relationship. That's where you are going to stand out as that purple cow leader. You're not just feeling, you're not just, just, observing, but you're taking an action. And action is where the relationships happen.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So firstly, thank you so much for elaborating on that because you're so right, Sabiji. So when I think about empathy, that's exactly what I envision, right? When I think about
Yeah.
empathy, right? Understanding where the other
Yeah.
person is coming from and, and how would I feel if I was
Yeah.
in their shoes and if
Yeah.
I was in the situation. But I love that you make it actionable, right?
Yeah.
So have empathy, but see how can I now support this person with action?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I love that because again, I hadn't thought of that because I say to people often, professionally, I say,
Yeah.
I want to support you, and I will say, how can I support you? But I
Yeah.
think it's important to add action to that and maybe be proactive
Yeah.
in helping them or supporting them.
Yeah, and it comes from your energy, right? Because we all are emitting energy. If you are real, authentic in your conversations, people can feel your energy. If you're just saying, "How can I help you?" just for the sake of saying it, they're gonna feel it. They're not gonna open up. But if you say, "You know what? How can I help?" Be genuinely.
Yeah.
It should come from inside. If it's not coming from inside, guess what? You're not gonna open up the other individuals. You're not gonna have that vulnerability. You will not be able to have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I think folks can sense when you're being genuine and when you're
Absolutely.
being authentic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh and so Sapiji, so you kind of touched a little bit on this a little while ago. So can you talk a little bit about how you transitioned from the scare leadership model to the cares leadership model? And so for folks that are listening, well, actually, I'm going to let you go ahead and
Yeah.
explain what is the difference between the two models.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. So, this framework I developed after we went through a complex transformation. So it was in 2018. I will share a story. Okay. So it was in 2018, February 2018. I was managing a PMO at City of Portland. And February 2018, one of my boss, who was a chief technology officer, one day come to me during my one-on-one check-in and say, Sabi, have you ever jumped from a plane? And I was
yeah.
like, no. He was like, "Are you interested?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "Guess what? I'm assigning you to this project." And that project was implementing City of Portland's permit system. And that project had been going on for 10 years and it had failed multiple times. So previous project managers were either fired or were put in different roles. Even one of the bureau directors was fired. So that was actually jumping from the plane at that
Yeah.
time. So I said, yes, there is a story. We can, dig a little bit more deeper later on if needed, why I said yes. But we actually went live on February 10th, 2020. So
Okay.
I said, okay, I need to help other individuals to figure out what are some of the lessons which I learned so that it makes it easier for them when they are ready to lead those complex transformations. So, scare, what I've seen is so many times leaders, when they're scared, they create a culture of fear
Yeah.
within the organization,
Yeah.
right? So it's micromanagement comes in. It's like, okay, what are you working on? Don't send this report to, you have to get everything checked by me. I need to look at everything, right? Micromanagement. Then there is this culture of inflexibility. Inflexibility is like, no, anything I'm going to say, that's how you're going to do it. Because you're taking that empowerment away from your team. You're taking that trust away from your team and you are creating that toxic culture within the organization. So I said, okay, we need to shift that mindset and how leaders can shift from scare to cares because
Yeah.
it's just moving that S from scare at the bottom. So cares stands for first is communication for
Okay.
any complex transformations. You need to communicate, 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 right? Digital transformations, 84% of these complex transformations fail, Pramjit. 92% of those are because of people issues. 52% are because of communication issues.
Yeah.
So it's a major, most of the time, folks may be spending too much time on technology. You should be spending more time with people and communication. Organizational change management is such a key ingredient for any complex transformations. So that's a C. So when I looked a little bit more deeper into C, I said, okay, OCM is such a chain, such a huge piece. How can I make it even more easier? So I came with another framework for that, and it's called Virsa,
Uh-huh.
right? And Virsa, if you don't know Virsa, Virsa, it comes from Punjab. It's our background, it's our roots where we started from. So I said, that sounds so close to my heart. So I said, okay, Virsa is the one. So what does Virsa stands for? V stands for vision. So as a leader, if you're not providing that vision to your team, you're providing that roadmap, your team is that organizational change management is going to fail. That may
Yeah.
change. I stands for incentives. What incentives are you providing to your team members so that they can go through that change?
Yeah.
Resources. If you're not providing the resources, the money, the budget, the training, and everything else to your team to go through that change is going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Right? S stands for skills. And if there are no skills provided, you have all the money, you have all the resources, right? You have all the budget, but your team doesn't have the skill. That change is going to fail.
Sure.
And A stands for action plan. So if you don't have a structure in place to help organizations to go through that change, using any kind of the models out there, whether it's a ProSciad car model or Deming's model or any other models which are out there, your change is going to fail, or it will have lower percentage for success. So
Yeah.
that VIRSA for change management as part of communication is very important. Then I coming back to the CARES framework. A stands for adapt. The speed of change which we're seeing right now
Yeah.
is the slowest which you're going to ever see. It's just going exponential, right? So I recently posted about that podcast, Parmjit, where you said, "Oh my God, is it the end of all the podcasters?"
Yeah.
Right?
You talked about AI. That's
AI.
gener
It's like what I did was I put my short bio in this tool, and there were these two machines who were talking about me. And they were having this conversation, which was like, oh my God, mind blowing. So things are going to come, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, Technology, people, COVID, everything. How are you going to adapt for your particular?
Yes.
That's going to help you to lead those complex transformations. R stands for relationships. And again, it goes back to that same thing, right? Do you get relationships? Having that three pillars in there to effectively, you need to build stronger relationships within your team. You need to have stronger relationship with your stakeholders, stronger
Mm-hmm.
relationship with your sponsors, stronger relationship with your vendor partners. You need to have all those relationships in place to lead those success transformations.
Yeah.
E stands for empower. Are you empowering your team to execute on initiatives? Are you trust? Have you already built a culture of trust within your organization? And people say, Sabi, you're talking so much about trust. So how do you build trust? And to building trust, I have an equation for people, right? So T is equal to R plus C plus I divided by SI. Okay. So T is equal to R plus C plus I divided by SI. R stands for reliability.
Okay.
If you're not reliable, your team is not going to trust you,
Yeah.
right? If I didn't show up on time here, Pranjit, oh yeah, the trust level has gone would have. What's going on with Sabi, right? What's going on there? C stands for competency.
Yeah.
If you're not competent enough, if your boss, if your manager, if your supervisor is giving you a project, can you deliver? Giving you a task, can you deliver on the task effectively? If you are not competent to deliver, that trust is going to go down. So you need to continue have that mindset of learning, continuously getting better. That's how you build that trust. Then I stands for integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching.
Absolutely.
So those are the three pieces on the top which help you to build that trust. And it's divided by SI. SI stands for self-interest. Okay. If anything and everything which you're doing is for your own benefit, for your own self, your team is not going to trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Conversely, if you want to build a trust with your team, take that self-interest out. Do it for a bigger vision, bigger purpose. And that's how you're going to effectively build trust within your team. And then last part of cares is staying calm. So it so many times I've seen people or leaders go into a spin because they can't effectively handle stress. They can't effectively manage change. They can't effectively manage the politics, which you have to manage as a
Sure,
leader.
sure, yeah.
You can't run away from those things, but you have to stay calm because if you're not staying calm as a leader, your team is going to go into spin and your projects or those transformations are going to fail. So it's very important to have this, cares framework, CARES, for your complex transformations.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're, I'm sure, and they're, individuals are looking to their leader, right, for guidance. They are relying on their, right. So, I equate it to maybe, a pilot flying a plane, right? So if, let's say they run into an emergency situation, but if that pilot is panicking, obviously everyone on the plane is probably going to be panicking anyway.
Yeah,
But I think they would panic even more if they see that the leader of that plane is also panicking, and they feel that that leader doesn't have a plan for how to lead them to safety, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. So as a leader, it's not only your role to, have a plan, but it's also your role to make sure, as you said, to land your team safely onto the ground, right? You have to deliver that project successfully, making sure your team stays intact. They're not stressed, they're not dying from all these challenges, right? So that's such a key role for the leader because when you're jumping from a plane, right, you need to be adaptable. You have to come up with things while you are in that journey. No amount of planning can save your project, but if you're chaotic and chaos, your project is definitely going to fail.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And and even as you're talking, Sabiji, I'm like thinking about my own projects. I'm thinking even about some of the volunteer work that I've done. And areas where maybe I didn't use the right approach, or maybe I could have done things differently. Because, I do a lot of self-reflection and
Yeah.
Sabiji. So as you're speaking, I'm immediately applying those techniques that you're talking about to myself and saying, how could I have maybe applied the CARES model
Yeah.
in this organization. And so, Sabiji, so when you were on that project, right, that had failed multiple
Yeah.
times,
Yes.
did you apply the, so I'm because my assumption would be a lot of these project teams, and of course project teams change often, right? So I'm not saying it was the same people over the course of the 10 years, but let's say there's some individuals who were still with the organization throughout those
Yes.
10 years, right? So they saw project manager after project manager, they saw
Yeah.
failure after failure. So I'm sure that they, at this point, were in a frenzy and were used to chaos, right? The term that you
Yes.
used, right? So when you went in, how did you foster trust within that team? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure that they were at that point skeptical of anybody new coming in saying that, oh, we're gonna finally execute and close this thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are a few things which I did. First of all, every morning, every morning I would go into the office and I will meet each and every team member,
Hmm.
right? And I say, what's going on? How are things going? What's going on in your life, right? How are your kids doing? Because the impact which they're going to have in their personal life is going to have an impact on your project.
Sure.
And then asking the same question is like, how can I help? Right? There was this one lady, she was like, my husband is coming from an international trip. I have to go and pick him up from Seattle airport and I have to leave at night. And I don't know if I can, travel at night to Seattle airport. I was like, you know what? I can go with you,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
I'm gonna go with you, and I'm gonna go with you to pick your husband up. And she was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yes. Just give me a call,
Yeah.
and I'll be ready to go." And she was like, "No, let me see if I can find my, kid or somebody else." But then, once I said, "Okay, once you reach there, give me a call." that you reach there safely, right? Taking these small things and acting on it. It wasn't fluff, right? If she had told me, like, Sabi, I want you to come with me, I would have left and I would have gone with her, because the actions speak louder than words, and everybody's watching. The second thing was, I had a team member who actually started on this project, who was actually here in 1998 when this product was implemented, right? So it's an interesting story. So I go and meet this team member in her cubicle, and she had a whiteboard on the back, and there were some numbers written over there, like 287, 286, 285, 284, so on. And some of those were crossed off, and I was like, what are these numbers and why are they crossed off? And she was like, Sabi, these are the days left before I retire.
Oh.
And I was like, there's no way you can retire, right? It's like, you were here when we implemented the system, so there is no way you can retire. What can I do to make things successful for you?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like, I can bring a box of chocolates every day for you, or every week. My wife cooks a good Indian dinner once a month. I can treat you to that. And she was like, Sabi, I need two things. And I was like, okay, what are the two things you need? And she was like, Sabi, I should be able to work from home 2 days a week, and I need dual monitors at my home. And I'm talking about 2018, when working from home, you had to take an exception from either the director of the bureau or even the mayor of the city. It was
Yeah.
that tough, right? So
Wow.
we got an exception approved for her. And then sending dual monitors to her house, there wasn't even a code for that at the city, so there wasn't too much liability, too much risk for city to go through that. So I actually bought those dual monitors from my own money and shipped to her house, right? So those are the small actions which you have to do to say, you know what, I am not just saying we are here together, let's work toward this goal. And then you have to share the vision, build the roadmap, right? So very quickly we build a roadmap based on talking with our technology, talking with business, what do they need, what is important for them, clearly divided into smaller chunks, smaller things. So that's the role of the leader, right? Provide that vision, provide that roadmap, and then take care of your team. Because if you take care of your team, they will take care of your project.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I again, I love that as well because I say often that anybody, right, whether it's your team or whether it's anybody in a relationship, right, whether it's your
Yeah,
wife, whether it's, yeah, somebody else, and people just want to be heard. They want to be heard and they want to be shown that, hey, what you're saying matters to me. Your needs matter to me,
yeah,
right? And I think in getting her those 2 days, the ability to work from home for those 2 days, getting her those two monitors. I mean, it's something that's so simple, but and honestly, it makes such a big difference,
it does. It
right?
does. It does. Absolutely. You, again, those, you don't have to, spend hundreds and millions of dollars and do happy hours every single day to keep your team. It's the genuine thing. It's being genuine, taking care of team, shielding them from all the politics, making
Yeah.
sure that they can focus on the work, so that they are not dealing with all the politics. That's the role of the leader. Shield them from all those things which they don't need to be aware about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just touched on this, right? Being a servant leader, right? And as you just mentioned, protecting them from some of these exterior things that can make a negative impact on their life and on their project.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
so BG, so you play many roles, right? So CIO, strategic advisor, speaker extraordinaire, right? So firstly, how do you manage all of these things? So that's gonna be my first question. And then I definitely have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah. So you have to identify what your purpose in life is. Because if you haven't identified a purpose in your life, you're going to get burned out,
Yeah,
because you are running and chasing after things which don't mean anything to you. They are not the things which are energizing you.
yeah,
So, excuse me. So, what I have clearly identified, so even I will take a step back. So it's an interesting story. So when I came to United States in the year 2003, I always wanted to be application development manager. I don't know. Back in India, I was that. I was like, okay, I always wanted to be application development manager. So I started applying for application development manager, always got rejected. Like I applied for 50 positions, always got rejected. And it wasn't, my skill set or anything like that. But at that time, as a Sikh, I was wearing a turban,
Yeah.
right? So people
Yeah.
say there's no racism. I felt it. Sorry about that to share that, but I felt it, right?
No.
So,
Yeah,
right.
no,
So,
and don't apologize. I mean that
yeah,
that's your reality.
that's
Yeah.
the reality, right? So I cut my hair, nothing had changed. I cut my hair, third interview, I go, I get the job. Okay. So I never got a job into management, but I always wanted to get to management, right? That
Yeah.
application development manager position. And I started again from the scratch, becoming a software developer, became a project manager, business relationship manager. And finally, I became an application development manager. And I was like, okay, am I done in my life? Like, why I was doing all these things? Am I done in my life? So, a lot of self reflection in there. And then finally, I identified my purpose in life. Okay.
Yeah.
My purpose in life is to help as many individuals as I can to help them succeed, help them grow, elevate them so that they can be successful. So anything I am doing right now is all aligned with my purpose. I'm not doing anything which doesn't align with my purpose. Whether it's my role at CIO, I was like how I can impact the students, my team at this community college. Whether I am a speaker, that's again an opportunity to make that impact and go out and share my story so that it can impact them and help them get better. That's why I'm here today for your podcast because this aligns with my purpose. That's why I'm a strategic advisor because I help advise people to help them succeed. That's why I'm a professor. I also teach. I've been teaching for last 16 years. That teaching is also because I want to make that impact. I want to elevate other folks.
No. So firstly, that is so noble, Sabiji. That is so noble, but that perfectly aligns with who you are as a person, right? Just from what I know about you, right? You and I have met in person
Yeah.
before. I definitely consider you a very noble and humble person, and it's very evident in our interactions in some of the material I see you putting out on LinkedIn and through your business and through all the work that you do that you really are. You have a higher purpose, and it definitely is to help people and to empower them. And so I want to firstly thank you for all the work that you continue to do. And in that spirit, I would also then like to ask you, so what advice, Sabiji, again, through your incredibly vast experience as a leader, right? So for any new emerging leaders, right, who are looking to stand out, and myself included, what advice would you give us?
Absolutely. I will say, start with learning about you, your self awareness, who you are, why you are here, what is your purpose, what skill sets you need to learn, what are your strengths.
Yeah.
Most of the time I've seen many individuals chasing after the shiny thing. Maybe I need to, somebody's like, oh, I heard PMPs make X dollar amount of money, I need to get a PMP, or I need to go into
Absolutely.
cybersecurity, or I need to go into AI, I need to go into the shiny. Stop running after shiny things. You need to identify what your strengths are and then start aligning your life towards that. And the second thing is you need to shift your mindset, right? No matter how successful you want to become, if you don't have the right mindset, you always going to suffer. So if you have a positive mindset, you want to live that happy, that positive life, shift your mindset, start reframing those thoughts, start building that muscle of being more positive, reframing those thoughts. Meditation, start doing meditation, start doing exercises, start putting focus on those things first so you are ready to take over or take on those challenges. Because if you take on the challenge and you're not ready, you're going to be in a lot of stress, and you are not going to be in a happy position, and you have one life. Live that every single day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And And so, Sapiti, so firstly, thank you for that. And I also want to share another thank you. So for the audience members who are listening, and I definitely want to make sure that I point this out because I credit you to where I'm at in my life currently, where I'm at professionally. I give you a lot of credit for that. So, Sabiti, you spoke at an event for so our PMI chapter some time ago. And during that event, so you shared actually the story of this project, right,
Yeah,
that had failed over and over again, and that
yeah,
you helped execute and finally close that project. And so after that talk, I will never forget this. At that time, I hadn't spoken on stage in over a decade for a myriad of reasons, but mainly because of a lot of insecurities, right?
yes.
I didn't think that I had anything worth saying that people really wanted to listen to. Like I always felt that why would folks want to listen to me, right? What can I share that
Yeah.
folks would find valuable? But one thing I always knew is I always wanted to inspire people. That's always been my goal throughout my life. That's been always been my goal to inspire people and to help them to really see the power within themselves. And so, anyway, I remember you said to me, I told you, I was like, oh, Sabiji, I used to speak. I spoke probably 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And I remember you asked me, you were like, okay, well, why'd you stop? And I was like, well, and then I did probably made, several excuses, but
Excuses.
right.
Yeah.
And because I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs, but
Yeah.
you at that time gave me advice and you were so kind and so supportive. And I think it was through your words and the advice that you shared with me. I thought to myself, my gosh, I should start speaking again. Why don't I start speaking again? And so I wanted to just quickly share that with the audience because you have honestly, you have been a big part of my journey. So
Oh. No, thank you. I really appreciate it. This means a lot to me because that's the impact which I want to make, and I'm glad that we chatted and I was able to, you know, uh, inspire you to step out of that fear zone and say, okay, let's get back, Paramjeet. There's nothing to be scared about. Let's do it.
absolutely, absolutely. And if someone, I mean, I look at you, right? Because you, as you said, you came from India, right? You probably knew a little bit of English, but you, right, maybe weren't as fluent as maybe you would have liked to have been, right?
Yeah.
And I look at individuals such as yourself who, despite all odds, come to this country or they pursue a dream that maybe they once thought was impossible and they make things happen. Like folks like you, Sabine, you all inspire me so very
Oh,
much, right? And so I think to myself, if Sabiji can do it,
there you go.
obviously, then what is stopping me, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's the one reason which I want to be up there is for everybody to say, you know what, if Sabi can do it, we can do it too. Right? And I want to be that role model for my son, for my daughter, so that they don't get scared. Like, you know what, it's not possible. It's like, no, if you put your mind to something and you say you can do it, you're gonna get it done. Just you need to work extra hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Sabji, and with that, so we're coming to close for our episode, but one question I ask each one of my guests is, if you didn't do what you're doing today, right?
Hmm.
You're a CIO, you're a CISO, you are a professor, and so much more, right?
Hmm.
What did little boy Sabiji want to be when he grew up?
Hmm. That is such a tough question, right? What I would do. Maybe I will, do a selfless service where, maybe I will just build myself where I think that's what I feel like I was born to do is to serve others. And that aligns with so many things. So I may find a way to serve others and say, maybe I can do something to serve others. Maybe, serving food at the Gurdwara, right? At the langar, right? Maybe do that. Or maybe, find ways where I can make an impact and just change one life at a time.
Yeah, well, I think in your own way, you're doing that. That's exactly what you're doing, right? I think so. I think you are living out your childhood dream of serving others because that's exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Uh, so Sabiji, thank you so very much for that. Again, it has been such a pleasure. This conversation has been incredible. I've gained so much. I got so much value from it, and I'm sure folks who listen into this conversation on November 1st are also going to get a lot out of this. So thank you again. And Sabiji, you have your LinkedIn there
Right there.
above, as well as your website. So guys, if you are looking to engage Sabiji either as a speaker, a leader, or to take advantage of some of his consultations and the other many services that he offers, please go to his website and or go to his LinkedIn and check him out. He is a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paramjeet. And last parting words, think and act big. Chardi Kala Vishro.
Chardi Kalavich. Sat Sri Akal.